everybody, this is Clif and I am back to continue another video. So yes, the topic I'm going to be talking about is continuing the video series that I have been doing for the past couple of days. If you've seen the last video, you would know that I said that that was going to be the last one of that. However, some things came up and I realized that there was some more ideas I could talk about, something I could really add into it. And I even mentioned in a Twitter post that I was sort of going to combine the idea of that video with a previous video that I made talking about some basic ideas for the moon goddess, things like that, or like a moon god type Delphi, right? Ever since we found out Luffy's Delphi revealing to be the sun god Nika and stuff like that, there have been many people out there thinking like, well, what if there are other kind of deities out there as well? Like what if there's such as a moon god or moon goddess, right? Now, I'm not the only one to necessarily think about this in general. Everybody has been thinking about this, okay? But everyone's been trying to add their own spin, their own unique twist, their own general idea of like how things could work, how it could be. So it's been crazy, right? But truth be told, all we can do is just like throw crazy ideas out there, see if anyone likes it, and then maybe one of these days we just have to see which one of us gets it right, and that all comes down to seeing how Oda goes with it. Okay. So that's basically for that. Now I shouldn't mention necessarily that for the last video I made, I mostly focused on the whole Niku, but then I started to think about it. You know what? I didn't actually make a full dedicated video to the whole Nico aspect, right? So this is what this video will be about, okay? This one more focused on the Nico aspect, all right? And it's going to be pretty much the same way. However, I'm going to provide two different scenarios, okay? So the first one will still basically be the same, where I mentioned before how I could see the whole Nico Delphi being some sort of clone of Luffy's Delphi, all right? So just like I said before, but to continue on with what I'm saying, just like where I said before that ever since we found out from Dr. Vegapunk that he didn't mention and clarify that he could make mythical zones as well, right? He can make copies of the mythical zone Delphites as well, okay? And the fact that we find this out, it almost seems like Oda might be teasing us that maybe one of these days Vegapunk is going to make a clone of Luffy's Delphi, right? Now, keep in mind, that's not to say 100% that this is what's going to happen. It's just, you know, sometimes you can probably get a strange feeling. It's like, you know, something about that feels strange to me, all right? It's kind of like that kind of feeling, okay? Not saying it's going to happen, but just providing something, okay? And, you know, I basically provided in the previous videos where I said how I could see Nico as, you know, maybe like a reference to Nika itself, right? In the sense Nico can be an onomatopoeia for smiling, okay? And since Sun God Nika was the warrior of liberation who was said to bring smiles and bring joy and laughter through everyone and stuff like that. So that's basically for that, okay? So that pretty much is going to stay basically the same on that part. But what I'm going to do is basically twist it up a bit and sort of provide a new statement, a new general context if this Delphi wasn't actually a clone of Luffy's Delphi, but a brand new Delphi, right? And I figured that would be a little bit more interesting to go over, right? And there are a lot of things I need to go over this, right? I made a list in order to keep track of everything to basically provide everything, okay? So some of this stuff might be out of whack and stuff like that, so try and bear with me, and we'll get through it as much as possible, and we'll see where we can go on it, okay? And I'll try to explain everything that I sort of learned and provide everything I needed to, okay? So let's start with the name Nico, right? So why Nico, right? So there are a few things that I mentioned before, right? One thing, you can see Nico as being a reference to the sun god Nika, okay? The name Nika, okay? Another thing is that it also contains the numbers for 2 and 9, all right? The two missing numbers for the Straw Hat crew, all right? Unless it's 92. However, a lot of people prefer to go with the 29 than anything else. So, you know what? I'm going to stick with 29, okay? So we can get 29 from Ni, and we can get 9 from Ko, which honestly comes from Kokonotsu, all right? Another thing to make a reference to Nico is the Japanese word Niko. I think that's how it's pronounced. I do apologize if I'm mispronouncing some of these words. I'm not trying to. Just bear with me. I'm trying to do the best I can. And I'll sort of explain. Like, okay, so this is basically the Japanese word for sunlight. Okay, so it's basically the word for sunlight, right? And if you sort of take this word Nico or break it up, you can actually just get the translation of Nico, right? Right, and I believe it's basically spelled Nikkou, right? So you have the name Nico in there, or generally. And we all know that Nico can be smiling and stuff like that, okay? Now, I do have a proper name of this Delphi thing, but I'll sort of explain that here in a minute, okay? I want to wait on that part, okay? So another thing you can look at is that it can also be a reference to Nico Robin, right? So it might be like an idea like where this Devil Fruit might need its own name, right? So maybe Nami will give it a name, and then to basically understand what this Devil Fruit is and understand the importance of it, maybe she'll name it after Robin, right? By taking Robin's family name and providing that as the actual name, right? We don't know. Well, technically none of us know except for me. I'm the one making this theory, so that's a bit of a dumb thing to say. But and we all know how I said before that Nico can probably reference Nika, all right? So that's the basic premise of that part right there, okay? So to continue on even further, and I figure the best way to go over this is maybe I should start with, let's see, okay, so here's another thing, all right? Let's say, for instance, we can look at Moonlight, okay? So to basically, and we can see Moon as like maybe like another name, all right, or a parallel to it, okay? So if we look at Nico, the number's 29, all right? And if we look at different translations of those names, all right? Another way to translate to it's Sue, right? This is basically the common English translation into a Japanese translation, right? So taking the more common English translation and translating into a Japanese one would obviously be Sue, right? And then and ki can also translate into 9, right? I believe ki is more often used in if I'm understanding this correctly, I believe it's often used in like government papers or like officials and stuff like that. I don't know for sure how it's supposed to work, but I've read and heard that that ki can also translate into 9, all right? So, and maybe you can see a reference to that in general, right? And there's other things I want to go over, right? There are more on this, all right? I got a lot of things packed into this. All right, so maybe the best thing to start off with is this, all right? So why would I choose Nami, right? Why would Nami be the perfect person to actually have this Devil Fruit, right? Well, there are a few things to basically provide why this could be important, right? The first thing I want to go over is with this, right? So let's rewind the clock back to when Nami and Luffy first met, all right? And let's stick with the manga context here, right? Instead of going deeply into the anime context where, well, truth be told, like, since the whole anime thing just happened and, like, it never even been referenced, it's just something that happened, we're going to have to stick to the manga categories here, right? So when Nami and Luffy first met, all right, so in Orange Town, before they faced off Bin Smug and stuff like that, Nami introduced herself, all right? She basically asked Luffy to be her partner, all right? Ever since, like, she saw Luffy was a strong person, and she thought he could be of use to her, and she even asked if hey, you want to team up? Let's be partners, okay? Now, since Luffy found out that Nami was basically someone who decided to rob from pirates, he, Luffy wanted to be a pirate, right? So he saw no reason for it, okay? However, that line right there is still interesting. The fact that Nami asked Luffy to be his partner, Nami asked Luffy to be her partner, and even though Luffy said he's not interested, imagine if that's just like a tip of the iceberg, right? Or like a clue for the incoming thing that Oda's basically telling us, hey guys, Luffy and Nami are going to be partners one of these days, all right? It's hard. Like, look, I'm not going to say anything 100% factual, but you never know how Oda's going to do things. All right, Oda can be crazy with his ideas and stuff like that. So a lot of things could happen. All right, so that's the first thing on that, and how you can see that since Luffy is basically the sun god Nika, maybe Nami will be the moon goddess of it. All right, so maybe that will be for that, all right? And another thing to point out here is that just like in a sense, the moon and the sun are partners in well, to put it simple, the best way I can go over it is with the word sunlight, all right? So going back to the whole Nico thing I mentioned on the sunlight portion of it, how is moonlight actually formed? Well, moonlight is actually formed from the sunlight itself, right? So basically the way moonlight works is that it's just the sun's light reflecting off the moon's surface, providing light to the earth, right? So technically, without the sun, the moon cannot light us through the darkness, all right? If there is no sun, the moon has no light, all right? And and technically speaking, if the sun has no moon, then it basically cannot. Well, it's a little hard to necessarily explain details and stuff like that, but these two things basically complete each other, right? And in a way, that's almost how you can feel how Luffy and Nami is, all right? And I feel like this basically is a good way for telling that, okay? Another thing to basically provide here is why you can see this is a good idea is because of the promise that Luffy made to Genzo, right? So after Luffy had defeated Arlong, right? After he defeated Arlong, he basically had a conversation with Genzo where Genzo basically told Luffy, if you ever do anything to take away Nami's smile, I will personally come out to you myself, okay? Now, truth be told, we know Genzo can't really take down Luffy, right? And Genzo even knows that himself, right? But Luffy knows full well that Genzo is serious and Luffy will do whatever he can to try and keep that promise no matter what, all right? And keep in mind, just like I said before, where that partner thing could be the tip of an iceberg or like a hint for the incoming, maybe this is something to basically tell us that Nami, because that word smile was there, or because we're foretelling like not take away your smile, maybe it's a way to tell us that Nami will get a dolphin that can contain the word smile in the name, all right? And maybe that's something to look forward to or something to basically see. And who knows? A lot of crazy things. All right, so that's for that part, okay? So that's pretty much on that part, or there might be something I might have missed on that, but that's pretty much what I got on that, okay? So another thing I want to talk about is this, okay? So so we know Luffy's body turns him into rubber, right? So Luffy's body turns him into rubber, okay? So I began thinking and basically wondering, sort of curiously thinking to myself, okay, well, what exactly would Nami's body turn into, or anyone's body if they were to eat this stuff, right? What exactly could they turn into, right? And I feel like it had to be something interesting, right? So Luffy's body turns into rubber, and we know he's immune to like electricity, right? He's basically sort of like an inductor, right? Or not an inductor, an insulator, right? So Luffy is an insulator, right? So basically he cannot conduct the electricity, right? And, I thought to myself, well, do I make this Delph fruit the opposite of that, or do I make it the same? And to be honest, I feel like it would be best to keep it the same. And I came across two possibilities, all right? So the first thing I thought of, well, maybe we can go with more of like a glass, right? So I was thinking maybe something like glass, right? So, glass I thought was interesting. And, you can think of that as being like a good way to represent the moon, right? So just like the moon is reflecting the sun's light down on Earth, maybe or even just like how the how the moon is basically controlling the tides of the water, and the water is a reflection of states, right? So it basically reflects the moon, and how a lot of things are made from glass, or materials that are that are similar to glass, right? Kind of like mirrors, right? Or anything like that. Okay, now this isn't to necessarily say that I'm talking about making a mirror for, right? We already got one of those, right? This is a little bit more on a personal me myself kind of situation, all right? Well, maybe not really. I mean, that's probably a dumb way to say that. And truth be told, I feel like glass could work, right? Glass could really work. However, I actually thought it might be interesting to go with something else, right? And something that can sometimes that you might confuse with glass, but it's not really glass, right? It's actually porcelain, all right? And what I'm basically providing here is that maybe the Delph fruit basically turns someone into a porcelain, all right? So basically, their body becomes like a porcelain, and basically what it is, it's a mythical zone type that transforms someone into like a porcelain doll, right? Now, this isn't to necessarily be confused with Sugar's Delph fruit, the Habi Nomi, which allows you to turn people into dolls. This is more of you as a mythical guardian, right? So you were a mythical doll transformation for, right? You're basically a mythical porcelain doll, right? And there's more I want to add into this, all right? There's a lot more I want to add to this in general, okay? So another thing to basically go over is with this, right? So the Japanese word for doll is ningyo, right? And which actually translates into human form, right? So the Japanese word for doll is actually translates into human form, right? And to basically provide with this and why I'm going with porcelain and stuff like that. Now, you're probably wondering, well, why go with porcelain, right? The first set of dolls were actually made of wood and stuff like that. So why not go with that? Well, the reason why I'm not really going with wood is because I'm trying to stick away from like the whole natural element. It's because with, Aramaki's Delph fruit, and I feel like going with porcelains might have a bit of a more mystical vibe to it, especially because, that's kind of like the perfect way to give us the time when toys started to look more human-like, right? I want to give it more of a human-like feeling to it, all right? And that's why I'm sticking with porcelains, all right? Now, there's other ways that I want to provide to as an interesting here, and it's going to be kind of crazy, but there's some things I want to go over, right? So here's some interesting things about dolls that I came to understand and learn, right? So one thing that I discovered is that dolls in the in the 11th century or used as playthings, but also for protection, right? So a lot of times dolls weren't just used for playthings for like little kids, especially little girls. They were also used as like protections or charms, and dolls were made as so many different things and stuff. You have voodoo dolls, there's so many journal things, right? So many possibilities, right? And you can see how that is like a good way to basically describe it, right? Especially for someone like Nami, who's like, even throughout the entire Wano arc or during like the Punk Hazard arc, Nami's primary goal was to ensure the safety of the children and to keep them protected no matter what. And you can sort of feel like how this could be a perfect idea for Nami, all right? Now, another thing I want to add to this is basically the idea of what if it's, even though the doll, like, even though your body turns into porcelain, right, and you're basically like a porcelain doll, what if we're adding more of a context to it, right? So, what if, all right, so remember how I said how one of the ideas I had was for glass? Keep in mind that another name for porcelain was sometimes referred to as glass dolls, right? And they weren't made of glass, right? I should probably explain what is porcelain, right? So porcelain is actually not glass, right? It's actually more of a clay mineral, right? So it's actually more of a type of clay, okay? And basically, porcelain is basic. So to put it simple, porcelain is actually, well, it's basically a type of clay, all right? It's a type of clay, and it's usually given sort of like a translucent glossary effect around it to make it more of a shiny effect, okay? And to put it simple, what I basically thought here is, what if we sort of combine the idea of a porcelain with the idea of nesting dolls, right? So if you're not familiar with nesting dolls, they actually originate from Russia, right? And to put it simple, they're basically these little dolls that sort of like, if you take, like when you take it apart, there's another doll inside of it, right? Usually it contains like up to 8 dolls inside that. Most of the times it's a mother with a set of daughters and a set of sons, and then there is the infinite baby, okay? Now, basically what I'm sort of providing here is, what I'm sort of getting at is that what if this doll fruit basically gives Nami sort of like it turns her body into porcelain, right? So she basically is porcelain, but her body is like a hollow inside, right? And in each and every time that her body cracks, right? So whenever her body cracks, that's how the transformations come into effect, okay? And each of her transformations, she becomes a younger version of herself, okay? And we're not going to get like super young, so it's not going to basically be like, go back the next day or go back 2 years. No, it's not going to be like that, right? The transformations are basically, or maybe it would be a good idea to add like the pre-time skip Nami, so maybe the time skip Nami, pre-time skip Nami, and then maybe the maybe the 8-year-old Nami, and then maybe the 12, the baby, all right? So that would probably be how that work. However, there are more I want to go over this necessarily, and I'm trying to keep it all together, okay? I'm trying to keep it all together, okay? So what I was thinking about this is sort of going over the idea of like, what if, say, like the younger, more like the younger it gets, right? So the younger it gets, like whenever we get to baby Nami, the porcelain gets stronger, the porcelain body gets stronger, right? And this could probably be a reference to bone china, right? And that's another thing, right? A lot of times another name for porcelain is actually china, right? It's actually chinaware, right? Or basically china dolls, right? That's probably the best way to describe it if you're not familiar with it, okay? And we can say necessarily that you can take a reference to like bone china, which is basically the strongest of all the porcelain chinas, right? It's actually the strongest of them all. But for the One Piece effect, it would be 10 times stronger than that, right? Maybe 1,000 times stronger, right? And each transformation. So Nami is her regular human form right now, her regular natural appearance right now, with with her body transformed and her body to be sort of like a glassy, crystallized porcelain, all right? And then each and every time the body cracks, a new form emerges, all right? And what I'm going to provide here is sort of an idea of what her awakening is. So basically going over, her awakening is sort of a transformation all on itself, right? So it's basically like sort of like a metamorphosis evolution, right? Sort of like a butterfly in a way, right? From a caterpillar to a butterfly, except in the sense you're transforming from a doll, you're transforming basically through a doll into something else. And what I decided to do here is pretty much the same thing, where I'm sort of taking the idea of combining nesting dolls with porcelain dolls in a way. I decided to basically combine the idea of another Japanese word for ningyo, right? So there are basically two words that can be confused for each other. So ningyo, like I mentioned, can mean human form. However, the translation in context necessarily, you can also get ningyo for mermaid, right? That's actually the Japanese word for mermaid, okay? And that's basically what I'm writing here, is where Nami's awakening actually transforms her into a mermaid, right? She becomes a mermaid. Right? Now, why would I be going over a mermaid necessarily, right? Why a mermaid, okay? Well, there are a few things to basically why this could be a good idea, okay? So the first thing is this, right? So back when Nami had, during the East Blue arc, right? When Nami had basically, stolen the Mary and stuff like that. Well, yeah, stolen the Mary, stolen the treasure, and abandoned the Luffy and the crew before heading off to, Arlong Park and stuff like that to basically buy back her village that she's been trying to do for all her life, okay? Basically there were a lot of, Luffy and, Luffy was sort of refining his idea like what a mermaid actually looks like and stuff like that. And then we also know that Sanji basically sort of had a general idea or like describing like what Nami is really mer, right? Maybe this is another idea, just like where I mentioned that whole smile thing and that whole partner thing, where this is basically going to be the transformation, right? And it could actually work in context because we know, for instance, that ever since we found out that, we don't know this for sure, but it's most likely seems likely that Joy Boy from 800 years ago made a promise to the original Mermaid Princess, okay? Now, truth be told, the Mermaid Princess now is Shirahoshi, who is actually Poseidon, right? Who has basically the ability of Poseidon, right? Now, keep in mind, Poseidon is not the name of the princess; it's just the title that was given to the princess because she had the ability to control the Sea Kings, right? And maybe in a similar context, maybe just like the Sun God Nika was reborn, maybe there was a Moon Goddess as well, and it's basically going to be reborn in Nami, and maybe this shares some uniqueness with the mermaids themselves, right? And this could work in so many levels. So think of it like sort of a transformation into a mermaid, okay? Now, there were other things I want to go over this necessarily, right? So one idea that we can think of is with death, okay? So the first known mermaid that we're aware of in context and stories is actually someone named Atargatis, all right? I am sorry if I'm mispronouncing some of these, all right? I do apologize, guys. From what I understand, she was the first known mermaid, and some interesting things that I found out about her is that some of her symbols are basically include like lions, crescent moon, and apparently two fish confronting one another, okay? Another thing to point out here that is one of her consorts, Hadad, was stated to be the goddess storms, thunder, and rain, all right? You can see another connection there with Nami, all right? Right? Not to mention how we know how Shirahoshi met at basically stated that she felt like a connection with Nami, right? Like I stated before, you can see that as another idea that Oda is basically trying to tell us something, all right? It's just like basically there, and it's like, does it mean anything? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Now, I figured the way I can necessarily go over this and maybe an idea for each of those transformations, each of the forms that we can sort of revive for a name. So maybe one, you could have the maybe the first one you're basically referred to as the let's see. Oh crap! I had names for these. I sure down. See, I know the big one we're probably refer as the baby doll. Then maybe the adult one could be like the life-size doll, or like the lifelike doll, right? A reference to that. Then, oh crap! I should have wrote down. I should have wrote down those names. I totally forgot about those. Okay, but another thing I want to go over is basically with this, right? And it's an interesting thing to point out here is that I feel like, and that's another thing to point out here, just like where I say from the nesting dolls, it's usually provided with the mother, and then it gets, each and every time you pull out the dolls get younger and younger, usually provided until it gets to the baby, right? That's sort of what I'm providing here, is that, each and every time the body cracks, you get younger, but the body is actually getting stronger, right? It basically provides stronger, right? And that's sort of what I'm providing here on that context. And there's more to go over here. Oh, another thing to point out here, right? The Japanese word for porcelain is actually jiki, right? Now, you're probably thinking, well, wait a minute, why not call it the jiki Nami, right? If we're going to make our body porcelain, Luffy's body is made of rubber, or another name that Oda gave us is the Gomu Gomu, why not go with jiki? Well, we can't go with jiki because Oda gave jiki to kids Delphi. No, I'm not referring to Tama, and no, I'm not talking about Sugar, right? I'm talking about Kid, Captain Eustace Kid, the one who lost his arm because he pissed off Red Air Shanks, right? The one who had to team up with Law in order to take down Big Mom, alright? That kid. Yeah, alright? And another thing to point out here is that Jiki itself, you can also get 2 from G and Ki from 9, alright? You're getting another reference to 29 right there. I think that's pretty much all. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else. I think I got everything. Alright, oh wait, now I mentioned, alright, so now I should really go off with the name, right? So the actual name that I chose to go with this Delphi, right? Well, the name I decided to give is the name Emi, alright? Now, what is Emi, right? So Emi in Japanese can actually translate into smile, right? This is actually the kanji for smile, okay? Now, another thing to point out here, and this is something interesting here, that if you change the translation Emi and change it to Emu, okay, so E-M-U, all right, E-M-U, okay, Emu, you can actually translate the word into to smile or to bloom, right? And you can see that as another reference to Nico Robin. The fact that Nico Robin has a Hana Hana no Mi, maybe this could be like a good way to reference it or basically provide us with an incoming statement, right? And another thing to point out here is that, all right, so going over with Emu, right? There have been many ideas of people sort of theorizing about Nami's true heritage and everything like that. Some people have even theorized like some crazy connections with Emu-sama, okay? And if you basically look at those names, right, Emi or Emu, however you like prefer to it, or however it will be, you can see a lot of people start bringing up some crazy things, right? And not to mention, around the time when we first met Emu-sama, he was actually in a chamber room, when a garden-filled chamber room with flowers, right? So I'm just saying, you never know. There are some crazy things that you can probably there's some probably crazy things that you can probably see in a reference, right? So to put it simple, the idea I have for the name would be obviously the Hito Hito no Mi, mythical model Emi, or to put it simple, the moon goddess Emi, Mi Tsuki no Megami Emi. Now trying to come up with the proper English name, because like should like I keep it like the Nico no Mi in English, because each of the like, all right, so if we're translating the other ones and like that for the other Delph fruits that we have, so in English, Luffy's Delph fruit is the gum fruit. Chopper's is the human fruit. Robin's is the flower fruit, and then Brooks is the revive fruit. Okay, now coming up with a good idea for the English one, I almost thought it was gonna be impossible and stuff like that, but there are a few ideas I look forward to. So I decided to look up the word smile and figure out there was another word for smile, right? But something that could be useful, right? And maybe we can call it like the beam fruit, right? And not to say that it allows you to shoot laser beams, right? Or allows you to make steel beams and stuff like that. No, okay? So if you actually basically look up the word smile, another word you can get for smile is actually beam. And if you look at the word beam, you can get many general descriptions sort of providing like lights, or like providing lights in that way, okay? So, and the fact that it's sort of like stating like, it's, you got sort of like you got sort of like a beaming smile, like a beaming, you just like beaming with light, or just like beaming full of light, right? You're basically giving off like a beaming smile, okay? And that's another thing to point out here, is that why it's a good idea, because like thinking of a good idea for smiles in the context really fits with the idea that Luffy being the warrior of liberation, he's more on he's more on the comedy effect, right? While this one could be more of the sense like a watchful protector, a watchful guardian, someone who's actually there, right? Someone who maybe like during dark times is something there to basically shine light through, basically help shine light and shine the way so you won't get lost, right? You're basically there to navigate the directions, okay? And this could basically work, because just like in the context where I said that maybe dolls or not just used as protections, but this is like for kids as playthings, to basically be a protector and guardian to ensure safety, or even keep smiles warm. Like you're there to keep smiles, okay? And maybe you can see that as a good fit for, okay? So that's basically really what I have, okay? So to put it simple, each and every transformation, and if Nami eats a Delph fruit, her body basically becomes porcelain china, all right? And let's see. Oh, and maybe this, right? Maybe we can see another reference to, maybe Oda can make or maybe we can parallel the word Nico with the Japanese word neko, okay? So Japanese word for the neko is actually Japanese word for cat, okay? And maybe we can take inspiration from like the Maneki Neko-os and stuff like that, which are known as lucky cats, okay? And maybe a general idea here is maybe we can be a little bit clever here, in that each and every time Nami's form breaks, a new form emerges, is maybe Nami can also, because her body's hollow inside, maybe she can store treasure inside her body, right? So maybe she can actually put money inside of herself, kind of like a penny bank or a piggy bank, okay? Okay, and no matter what, each and every time, so no matter how much treasure she puts inside herself, each and every time her body cracks, the money is still inside of her, or even when she transforms into the newer form, it never changes, right? It's still in there. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. That should be every main thing I went over. So that should be everything. So yeah, so that's basically it. So you eat the Delph fruit, your body basically becomes porcelain. Your body basically becomes like a porcelain doll. Each and every time the porcelain body cracks, you're transforming into a younger version of yourself. And soon you're basically become a baby. You're at the strongest form of porcelain possible, 10 times stronger than regular porcelain, all right? Maybe even 100 times stronger. And then once that form breaks, your awakening truly emerges, all right? So, and now this isn't just something that can just necessarily happen. So, like, you know, let's say, like, you're in an instance, like, where, you know, just like where Kaido, like, if we're taking an example of this, right? Imagine the same scenario where Kaido jumped off the Sky Island in order to try and kill himself. Imagine the same scenario, or that if Nami were to eat this devil fruit, and if she was, like, in the baby form, or even if she was to jump off a Sky Island and land in stuff, her body would not break, all right? It would not break, all right? You could even throw a rock, all right? You can take a mallet, all right? You can take an axe, some swords. Course, no matter what it is, the body will not break, all right? Until the awakening is fully emerged, right? And when that awakening emerges, that's when the true transformation and the true form of the goddess actually appears, okay? So that's basically what I got here. So to put it simple, the Hito Nomi mythical model Emi, me, human fruit Emi, or in English maybe we'll call the Nico Nomi the bean fruit. So that's basically what I got here for this video. So hey, thank you for joining me for these video theories, for these video ideas I had. Thank you so much. I'm glad you had a chance to join me for these videos. If you liked what I provided, please let me know by smashing that like button. All right, and feel free to subscribe to the channel. All right, I very much appreciate it. All right, hit the notification bells. All right, if you feel like these videos are important, go ahead and share them with everybody else. All right, leave a comment down below on some of your ideas or what you think of it. Okay, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Okay, and since this is the last video on this, but not the last video I'll make on Nami, there will be something I'll make when the day comes, but this will definitely be the last one of this, unless something comes up. So maybe the best way to end this is to give another to end it off with Nami. So have a good day, everybody, and here's Nami. Bye.